It was the height of the pandemic, and an employee of a company that I'd been hired to help said, I hope when we have our new office, I'll be able to wash my hands. The bathrooms in our old office, the automatic sensors wouldn't turn on for me, the water and soap, because I have dark skin. I researched this and I learned that sensors can be adjusted. And at least in the northeast of the US, they're calibrated to see light skin. Another employee from a different company said, I'm looking forward to nursing my son when he's born. But I'm concerned about going into the office because I know there's not a private place for me to pump. Almost half of our workforce is female, and yet 42% of new parents leave the workplace postpartum because they don't feel supported at work. More than half of LGBTQ+ people stay closeted at work, even today in 2024. And we heard earlier, people of color change their hair and how they speak just to fit into the workplace. And what's worse, 80% of people with non-apparent disabilities, like ADHD and dyslexia, they don't disclose their disability at work for fear of retribution or stigma. So let's take that in. We spend a third of our lives working, and yet it's not really working for all of us, is it? Bring your whole self to work. Ooh, but not that part. The pandemic gave us all an opportunity to step back and reflect. And I'm a curious human. I have devoted my entire professional career to studying the work in the workplace. Change management, circular economy, group dynamics, interior design, architecture, organizational development, all to learn how we can make work better. And I work with leaders around the world and their employees to help work be better. But in the pandemic, many of us were sent home. We all were sent home, working from kitchens or spare bedrooms, and we reevaluated. The extroverts missed the office camaraderie, but they didn't miss the commute. And ask an extrovert how they got through the pandemic, and they might tell you they started talking to their pets or their plants. My husband started talking to me. The introverts welcomed some peace and quiet, but they were available all the time to kids and partners, and that brought its own chaotic stress. On the good news front, though, gender balance with household responsibilities was more shared. There was more sharing because I read a lot, mostly from men, who realized the amount of non-paying labor their partners put in every week just to make things run. That was good. But this pandemic was so disruptive to how work was done. How disruptive was it, Lisa? It caused us to reinvent, or gave us this opportunity to reinvent and rethink what work needs to do and how it needs to be. I mentioned earlier that we spend a third of our lives working, and so many of us aren't happy in the work that we do. What I'm going to share with you today are 3 ways that we can make work better by rethinking where we work, how we work, and why we work. Our modern ways of working had their beginnings in the early 1900s when there were efforts made to make work safer. At the time, it wasn't unusual for people to work 80 and 100 hours a week. And business leaders Frederick Taylor and Henry Ford found that giving people shorter work days actually improved productivity for their businesses. Thus, in 1940, the 40-hour work week was signed into law. We've hummed along for a long time until 2020, when I would say the pandemic was the most disruptive event to white-collar working since the advent of the 40-hour work week. It gave us a chance to rethink what we do and why we do it. We're ready for a more balanced and more satisfying relationship with work. Design of the modern workplace is rooted in factory floor configurations, when desks were spaced evenly in rows and managers would sit in private offices around the perimeter watching the workers. From the hours we worked to the design of the space, not a lot has changed in 100 years, and it's about time that it did, not just for our sake. Did you know that commercial buildings are responsible for 39% of carbon emissions? And we are killing our planet for nothing because these spaces are empty. Before the pandemic, they were empty 50% of the time. Workplaces were emptied 50% of the time. Now, they're empty 80% of the time. It is so wasteful. We are heating and cooling empty workplaces. 2018 numbers had us spending $3.36 billion in the United States to heat and cool empty spaces, and it contributes 22 million tons of carbon to our atmosphere. There's a lot we can do to work differently, and I'm going to share one story with a client who did just that. This employer has 160 employees, and they traded a 30,000 square foot office for 1,400 square feet of workspace located on a beautiful rural campus near where many of their employees live. The campus has a conference center, an organic marketplace, an all-day cafe, and hiking trails. The company's mission is to improve individual and community health. And they have a work-from-anywhere philosophy. So their people can work at home or they can come into the office, whatever works best for them. But what they do to create moments of connection is they hold retreats on the campus for all employees about 3 or 4 times a year. And these retreats give people meaningful moments of connection. They have team building and social activities and training. And it's a way for people to connect around the work that they do. This company is saving hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on operating costs. They've dramatically shrunk their carbon footprint, and their employee engagement has never been higher. This company was successful because of 2 things that they did. First, they listened to their employees. It was the staff who recommended different ways of working that would work better for everybody. It was the staff who asked for a remote-first philosophy. And second, their mission isn't just words on a page. Improve individual and community health. This organization has really focused on their own employees' individual health and well-being. They've given them more balance and control over their days, and they've made sure that they have opportunities to connect with intention. Let's move from where we work to how we work. When the pandemic came, this idea of remote work was new territory for almost everybody in the world. Very few were working remotely before the pandemic. And business leaders would say to me, well, how will we know our people are working if we can't see them? And I said, well, how did you know they were working before? I mean, they could have been on Zappos ordering new shoes. But leaders had to learn how to manage differently. And they're worried about productivity. Well, here's the good news. 4 years of data we have now, 4 years of data that show flexible working arrangements in a well-managed organization does not negatively impact productivity. As a matter of fact, it is not the productivity we need to worry about. It's connection and belonging. Connection and belonging. We've heard this throughout the day, actually, the need to belong. And leaders are saying, well, get back in the office 3 days a week so we can build community and connection. You mean the offices where people can't wash their hands or nurse or breastfeed, or they have to hide a disability or stay closeted? Oh, you mean those offices? You want them back in there, and you expect that they'll feel comfortable to build connections? Maslow's hierarchy of needs places belonging right between safety and esteem. It's incredibly important. Before we can create moments of connection, we need to know people feel they belong. So I'm going to share 2 ways that we can do that in our organizations. The first is to create a working together agreement. A working together agreement is simply a set of norms and guidelines that employees write together about how they want to interact with each other, wherever they're working. It can be voice volumes in an open workspace. It can be respecting calendars when making meetings. It can be video etiquette, cameras on or cameras off. The most important thing is that the employees themselves are the ones that write the guidelines. It's for them and by them. You could even use them in your workspace at home if you share workspace at home. Who's going to silence the dog when he is barking incessantly? Toilet seat up or down? The second idea for creating connection and belonging and trust, and really when we get down to it, this is all about trust, is ROWE, R-O-W-E, which stands for Results Only Work Environment. It is outcome-based performance management instead of butts-in-seat presence performance management. And ROWE was introduced into the company Best Buy in the early 2000s with tremendous success. On average, work teams experienced a 20% increase in their productivity. It's proven and it works. It works great. Finally, let's turn to why we work. It's not just about the money. It's also about friendships. And it's about flexibility and choice. And for some people, it's about contributing to something larger than themselves. And yet, so many people are not engaged in their work. When I was collecting stories from people about how they went through changes in their work through the pandemic, and there's 2 I want to share with you. One is a man named Bart. And Bart always worked long days, 5 days a week, with a substantial commute. And he loved being home during the pandemic when his kids returned to school. He loved that. Another man, John, shared that he actually was very sad when he realized how much of his life and how much of his kids' lives when they were younger he had spent working. Always at the office. His kids are now young adults. He missed many of their activities when they were younger. So when John's office said, everybody back to the office 3 days a week, he quit. He quit, and he started his own company with far more flexibility. And he's attracting the cream of the crop talent to his company. John decided enough of outmoded ways of working, and he's stopping the cycle of unhealthy work for future generations including his own now adult kids. I applaud John and Bart, and I realized when I was collecting these stories, they were mostly from men. I am a feminist. And I have been painting the patriarchy as responsible for outmoded ways of working. And it is. Just to be clear, the patriarchy is responsible. And yet, so many have sacrificed. So many have sacrificed for so long, thinking this is the way it needs to be. So many have been hiding who they are, not feeling comfortable to really belong. Man, this is our moment. This is our good news. This is our good news. We can change how we work to be better for everyone. We can take work from being a mundane obligation to being a source of fulfillment and meaning. If we can commit to that, I think we can create a world that's worth working in and for, and create a way that is better for people and better for the planet. Thank you.